Hi everyone and welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
And I'm Kat.
So today's article is all about an interesting career, a different sort of career.
It's not one that people usually think of when they're thinking of like, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Did you have that thought? Did you have the sort of, what am I going to be?
Discussion
absolutely. With yourself?
Oh, all the time.
Which kind of careers did you sort of think about and later reject?
Let me think. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be like a pet groomer. I wanted to be an artist, which I did become.
Cool.
And all sorts of other things too. I think at one point I actually wanted to be a sign language interpreter, but I never fully learned sign language.
There's still time.
Yeah, that's true. It's never too late.
There is still time.
Yeah, and a writer, which I also became.
Nice.
Yay.
Okay. I considered medicine. I think it's natural for anybody who is the son of a doctor to kind of think about that as a possible one.
Yeah.
But I weeded myself out of that by attending a course designed to make sure that people are getting into medicine for the right reasons, not just because of any, they haven't really thought about the alternatives.
I see. Okay.
Other than that, I thought scientist. So let's get back to our
kind of scientist.
Let's get back to our English teaching article for this English job I'm now working in. This career is about, as Kat said, a kind of scientist. It's an arborist. So let's read through today's article and find out all about this job.
On our everyday strolls, we are surrounded by the biggest, oldest life forms found on land. We notice trees, but often fail to recognize their massive power or contemplate their health until one of them falls and crushes a car or plunges through a house. This is just one reason why arborists are important. Whether they're identifying hazards on public streets or making a university campus look gorgeous, these tree specialists are essential to our communities in many ways. Foremost among their responsibilities is the trimming and pruning of trees and shrubs. For tall trees, arborists use ropes and harnesses to remove branches from extreme heights. Often this risky work needs to be done if a tree's growth intrudes on power lines and interferes with the work of maintenance crews. If an old tree looks unstable and is posing a danger to houses or other structures, an arborist finds safe methods of removing the tree altogether. However, as old growth is cleared out, it is usually replaced. Arborists select species they believe will thrive and provide diversity in a neighborhood's environment. Arborists also diagnose and treat tree diseases, such as fungal infections, and determine if a tree can be saved. They must also understand the way in which certain pesticides can be used to prevent insect damage. These chemicals have risks in addition to their benefits, though, and for this reason, arborists must be licensed to administer them. To become an arborist, one should first earn a degree or diploma in a related field, such as horticulture or forestry. Graduates should then look for experience by doing an internship. Although this limited experience might be enough to perform entry-level jobs, such as landscaping for private landowners, the best arborists further their careers with training and qualifications from a licensing institution. It takes true skill to climb to the top of this career.
Okay, so that is our article, and the word we've got in the title, arborist, is basically explained by the entire article.
Yep.
An arborist is an expert in trees, particularly trees in urban areas, but I suppose when we talk later about forestry, I suppose an arborist could have something to do with actual forests as well, but forest management is going to involve different sort of skills and different considerations than
That's true.
Sort of individual trees and their surroundings.
Yeah, exactly. Because a forest, trees are supposed to be there.
Right, but you've also got to think of, like forests and fires are something you have to worry about, whereas fires and local trees
or reforestation after
the animals that live in there and all of that sort of stuff. Anyway, our article starts by saying, on our everyday strolls or walks, we are surrounded by the biggest, oldest life forms found on land. I've actually, when I was a kid, I used to visit Sherwood Forest, the home of Robin Hood, if you know those legends.
Yes.
And the tree that he is supposed to have sheltered under, the major oak, is still there. This 1,000-year-old tree that's held up by supports.
Wow.
It is. So this is what we mean by big old life forms.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember going to the redwood forest in California, where some of those trees are also 1,000 or more years old. You can fit your entire family around them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. So we are, strolling past these trees and we notice trees, but often fail to recognize their massive power or contemplate their health until one of them falls and crushes a car or plunges through a house. That's true. How many trees do you pass every day and do you go like, oh, look at that tree, look at that tree?
I try to pay attention to trees. I actually do. I do my best. And I do own a book that identifies different types of trees, but I just haven't studied it enough to be able to go, oh, that's this kind, that's this kind.
All right. So, but there are other people who just kind of pass them by.
Yeah, and sometimes I will if I'm I'll only notice them if I'm by myself.
Yeah, and so, maybe we don't really notice them unless we are, by ourselves or walking slowly.
Yeah, paying attention.
So we don't contemplate them very much. Now, contemplate is our first vocab word here, and it basically means to think about something very purposefully and kind of in a thoughtful way. Like when you are contemplating a tree, you're looking up at the tree, you're saying like, look at the shape of these leaves. Look at how big this trunk is. Look at, all these animals that live in it. I wonder what kind of tree this is. I wonder how old it is. You're kind of thinking about it in a way that you're considering everything about it. That's contemplation.
Yeah, but we often don't think about their health. Like, hey, I wonder if this tree is okay. What would happen if a typhoon came down here? And I've seen typhoons here, and you see all the trees that have been blown over afterwards. You think that is quite sad.
Yeah.
All these trees getting knocked down,
yeah.
Especially the ones on the streets where maybe their roots don't go very deep, and it's easier for them to be knocked over than a tree out in the forest.
Right.
That's what can happen if a tree gets blown over or just dies because it's not getting enough water and other nutrients. They could fall and crush a car or plunge through a house.
Yikes.
To plunge is to fall. It could mean to jump from a high place or just slip and fall from a high place. We could say a bungee jumper would plunge off a cliff or off a bridge for a bit of bouncing on a rope. Somebody could plunge to their death if they fell from a high place. Here, the tree falls. It's obviously the top of the tree is very high and it plunges or falls through a house. So it might just fall one way. And the trees are very heavy. So, they will go crash through the wall, through the ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. And they can totally ruin your house and ruin themselves. Yep. So this is just one reason why arborists are important. And as you said, they work in urban areas, right?
Yeah, cities, towns. So they're looking at these trees and going, I think that one is okay, or oh dear, this one's not looking too good. The roots here aren't looking as though they're going to keep it up in a coming typhoon. I imagine they go around and do a quick check before a typhoon comes. Like, okay, any trees look as though they're going to get knocked over and cause a lot of damage.
Right.
And that's what we get into by talking about what the arborists do. So this paragraph ends by saying, whether they're identifying hazards on public streets or making a university campus look gorgeous, these tree specialists are essential to our communities in many ways. So here we talk about hazards. A hazard is some kind of danger. It's something that maybe by itself isn't dangerous, but could cause a dangerous situation. So even power lines above a road are a hazard for things. If the road is very wet, that is a hazard. If there's ice on the road, that's a hazard. If you were looking at a cliff, a rock wall, you go, oh, there's some rocks there which are loose, they're a hazard, that kind of thing. So it's basically any kind of source of danger, anything that could cause either public property damage or hurt and kill people.
Yeah, I often think of small toys that are considered choking hazards for small children.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so, they identify dangers or potential dangers, and they also have the job of making places look gorgeous. Now, gorgeous, of course, just means very, very beautiful. And of course, there are trees that can make places look really, really nice, like trees that flower in the springtime. Yeah, gorgeous is just one of those ways of saying something is really beautiful. Not just beautiful, like really, really nice. Like you look at it and you're like, whoa, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
So yeah, the arborists don't just look after things and keep everybody, both ourselves and the trees, safe. They also have this job of making areas look good. And we're going to look at that in the next paragraph. We talk about all the different jobs that an arborist might do.
Yeah.
It says foremost among, or you can say amongst if you want, foremost among their responsibilities is the trimming and pruning of trees and shrubs. So we've got a few specific vocabulary words to look at here, but first is foremost.
First and foremost is foremost.
We often use the phrase first and foremost. Foremost means either the first or the most important in terms of its just importance.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the biggest job.
Yeah.
So it's before all the others.
Yeah, it comes before most things.
Yes,
Foremost. Yep.
Exactly.
All right.
So, and that responsibility is trimming and pruning.
Yeah, so trimming and pruning is something that you have to consider if you are taking care of plants, particularly pruning. Trimming can just mean cutting a little bit off of something, and you can talk about trimming your hair, trimming your fingernails, trimming the branches of a tree. It's just cutting a little bit off to make it look a little bit nicer. And then pruning, I guess pruning is sort of similar, but it only applies to plants.
Yeah, this is used to mean cutting away kind of dead or overgrown areas, but also to do it in a way that encourages growth.
Yeah, exactly.
You're kind of going, okay, this bit is maybe too heavy, and if we keep growing the branches this side, the tree might get unbalanced and fall over because they're all pointing towards the sun. So we need to take off a few branches here, or the tree might just get too heavy on one side.
Yeah.
But if we cut here, we'll do it in a way that makes the branch grow off in the other direction and balance the tree.
Yeah.
So it's cutting in a way that encourages growth, but also gets rid of, like, if a branch has gone dead, right, we've got to take that off, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a little more specific than just trimming for appearance or just to get things the right shape.
Yeah, exactly. So pruning is more for the health of the tree than the appearance.
Exactly.
Okay. And shrubs. Now, we know what trees are, but shrubs are, you can think of them as short trees.
Yes.
Yeah, they're really little trees. They're kind of between trees and bushes. They have a small trunk. They have usually a lot of branches. I think of sage or, little hedges. Those are like shrubs.
Yeah, one thing to look out for is they often have several different stems poking up out of the ground, all connected by one set of roots, and then the branches and leaves kind of all form together.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's a woody plant, if you think of it in that way. Okay, so, they have to be pruned, of course, as well. So you might think of a row of hedges along the side of a road, or a group of, a small set of shrubs that aren't as high as trees but still fill a space in a park or in a university campus like we mentioned before.
I think of rose bushes. Those might be considered a shrub.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, so some of the trees, of course, as we mentioned, are going to be very tall, and it's those tall trees that can often cause the biggest hazards, especially when if they fall. So for tall trees, arborists use ropes and harnesses to remove branches from extreme heights, dozens of feet in the air.
We don't want them to plunge into anybody's house.
Exactly. So a harness is just a sort of a setup of ropes, straps, and other kind of security things that allow you to be tied either to the tree or to some other solid structure so that if you fall, you get caught, and it allows you to not have to hold on with all your hands while you're doing whatever you need to do up there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like a rope system, and it lets you climb high heights without being in danger. Yeah. So often this risky work, of course, it's not all not dangerous. It's sometimes risky. Often this risky work needs to be done if a tree's growth intrudes on power lines and interferes with the work of maintenance crews. That's true, because trees in urban areas, they often grow next to places where we have electrical power lines going along the street. And if the tree gets too close to it with its branches, it could, it could catch fire. It could
cut the
break.
power.
Yeah, it could cut the power. Anything that, like, if there's a storm, they could really get each other in trouble, those power lines and those trees. So intruding on power lines would mean that the tree is kind of interrupting it by going into its space. And intruding on somebody or on a space would just mean kind of like getting too close to it or interfering with it by getting into its space.
Yeah, going in when you're not really welcome without really asking to be let in.
I don't mean to intrude, but...
Yeah, exactly. That would be sorry for interrupting, something like that. And this would affect the power lines and also interfere with the work of maintenance crews. So this could be... Maintenance basically means keeping something in a good condition by either cleaning it, by doing small repairs, by making sure everything's still like structurally okay. But it could mean anything from cleaning windows. So, of course, if a building it's going to need its windows cleaned from outside. You often see people high up washing the windows. If there's a great big tree in the way, then it might make it difficult and maybe even dangerous for them to clean those high windows or, work on the wiring of a house or go up to the roof and do some stuff. So that's why maintenance crews also could have their work interfered with. Their work could be intruded on. A maintenance crew is just a group of people who do this regular work of maintaining, of keeping a building or it could be something like a bridge.
Or
an overpass,
or
that
roads.
sort of thing. Yeah, maintenance crews need to work on roads. If a tree root is getting in the road, that's a problem.
Yeah, it can cause cracks and
Exactly,
bumps.
they could damage the roadworks.
Yeah, so if an old tree looks unstable and is posing a danger to houses or other structures, an arborist finds safe methods of removing the tree altogether. So, trimming and pruning is all good, but sometimes they just need to go completely.
Yep.
Like, like those old trees. Like if a typhoon is coming and this tree looks like it's just ready to blow over onto a highway or something, it's got to be taken down.
Yeah, they may need to. I mean, it may be they can put it elsewhere, but it'll just need to be removed. However, as the article says, as old growth is cleared out, it is usually replaced. So they'll put something, they won't just take a tree away, they'll put up a new tree.
Yeah, and I think they usually source these from like tree farms, right? Like they want something that's already kind of grown a little bit.
Yeah. You sometimes see very small trees around, but they don't often survive that easily in an urban place. So,
it's difficult.
Getting something that's already reasonably sized and growing in the right way without too many low branches, that's the sort of thing they're looking for.
Yeah. And they often try and pick really specific things. So arborists select species they believe will thrive and provide diversity in a neighborhood's environment. So thrive here is kind of like, when you say something doesn't just survive, it thrives, or you are not just surviving, you're thriving. It means that you're not only living, you're living very well, and you're doing, you're healthy, you're growing well. In the case of a tree, it's resistant to things like rain and weather, and it's able to stand up against any sort of like possible hazards to its life.
Yeah, another word we could use there is flourish. Yeah, it's basically doing really well. And by providing diversity, this could mean that they just give some different looks, like, oh, that tree's a different kind of shape, it's got different flowers. If it does flower, the leaves are different. Some are evergreens, so they'll stay green all year round, and some will shed their leaves to provide those beautiful autumn colors. But they'll also provide diversity in terms of the kinds of animals that live in them and make their homes. So it might get more birds or squirrels or, butterflies, things like that in the area.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll learn a bit more about what arborists do in just a moment, but right now we're going to take a short break.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are on the second half of our article on arborists, these people who take care of trees where we live. Yeah, so we talked about like what their main job is, but we're also going to talk about a few more aspects of their job. So they have to select they have to trim and prune trees. They have to remove old growth if it's dangerous, but they also have to kind of be tree doctors. So arborists also diagnose and treat tree diseases such as fungal infections and determine if a tree can be saved. Yeah, so trees can get things like, fungal infections, which are kind of nasty. A fungal is an adjective that refers to fungus, which could be anything from like mushrooms, mold. It could be, are lichens a fungus? No, they're a plant.
I think they're a plant.
Yeah, but anything that grows on other organic life forms. And, humans can also get fungal infections like Hong Kong foot.
Yep,
that's a fungal infection. So, if you get that sort of thing, it can be really itchy. Maybe it's also really unpleasant for trees. It can actually kill them.
Indeed it can.
Yeah, so they have to decide if the tree can be saved or if they can kind of give it a little vaccine. There are actually tree vaccines.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. So they have to kind of be tree doctors.
That is a perfect way to put it. And just like doctors use medicines, arborists have their own methods they can use. We see that they must also understand the way in which certain pesticides can be used to prevent insect damage. So it's not just fungal infections that can attack a tree. There can be insects as well. Some insects are good. They're quite happy to live in the tree and just, use its resources and not take away from it. But some other bugs will kind of eat the wood and make the tree hollow and make it more likely to fall over and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you will need to use pesticides to do that. A pesticide is any kind of chemical which kills or drives away bugs. It can work on other things as well. That's why it's called a pesticide. A pest could also include things like birds, rats, even snakes.
Yeah.
So some pesticides will work on those. These are the ones that kill insects. Usually a chemical spray, but there are some completely natural organic pesticides out there as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think of citrus ones to kind of control ant populations. Yeah. These chemicals have risks in addition to their benefits, though, and for this reason, arborists must be licensed to administer them. Of course, any pesticide that is a chemical pesticide, it's going to have dangers to other certain things. Like if you're trying to kill one certain kind of bug that's bad for your tree, you might also kill another kind of bug that's good for your tree. Or, it could be poisonous to people even. So they have risks in addition to their benefits, and so they must be licensed to administer them. Administer is just kind of a more fancy or more formal way to say give something to somebody or to another item. So like administering medicine would be giving somebody medicine so that they can take it, or giving them medicine through a vaccine, through, a cream, any sort of thing. That would be administering, or administering care, giving somebody care. Administering pesticides would be putting the pesticide on the tree.
Yep, and doing it in the right way.
Yeah.
So that's talking about all the different kinds of jobs arborists do. Now, if you have found this interesting, you might think, wow, I would love to make a career out of looking after trees. How would I go about becoming an arborist? What do I need to do? Well, the final paragraph of this article takes us through it. It says, to become an arborist, one should first earn a degree or diploma in a related field such as horticulture or forestry. So horticulture is the management of gardens. So this is looking after more things like grass, low plants, lots of flowers, and people who are experts in horticulture, they could just be good at it and they'll have a beautiful garden of their own, but they'll also be employed by parks and other places like that to look after the flowers, the grass, and all the other stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I took a horticulture class in high school.
Cool.
It was not easy. It is not easy to look after plants because they all have different needs. They're very complicated. And forestry is a related field too. As you can guess by the name, it's the it's the job of taking or looking after a forest. Now, that might involve, making sure that forests are not going to be destroyed by fires, or that if they are, it's in a controlled way.
Yep.
Or making sure that the trees in a particular area are all healthy and they're not being taken over by invasive species, things like that. That's what forestry involves.
Exactly. So you can study either of those two things at college, and then if you might decide, well, you know what, I want to keep sticking with gardens, or no, I want to go and manage a forest. But if you want to continue to become an arborist, the article says graduates should then look for experience by doing an internship. So this means
internships.
Yeah, working for a company in a low or maybe even unpaid capacity, doing the kind of lowest basic jobs, basically to gain experience in the field and to make contacts if the internship goes well.
Right, and to probably be mentored by somebody or by other people in the company, hopefully.
Yeah, real-life training as opposed to sort of studying the subject from a book.
Yeah, exactly. Now, although this limited experience might be enough to perform entry-level jobs, such as landscaping for private landowners, the best arborists further their careers with training and qualifications from a licensing institution. So yeah, if you want to become an actual, really, really good and high-paid arborist, then you're going to have to get a license. You're going to have to be trained in extra training. Probably you'll have to go to more school, that kind of thing. But otherwise, you can do entry-level jobs like landscaping. And this is nothing to sniff at. My cousin is a landscaper. She makes a lot of money. So landscaping is where you it's a little similar to horticulture, but it's more about how it looks. It's about the design of a garden. So you can say that landscaping has to do with making outdoor spaces look nice.
Yeah, and keeping them looking nice.
Yes.
So it's simple stuff like keeping the lawn good, managing the trees and bushes and flowers.
Yeah.
I guess you might also even, one with more experience might put in water features.
Yes.
Work around things like that, build a path. That sort of stuff.
And, shape flower beds. Maybe I think of, the landscapers at Disneyland who have to plant flowers in the shape of Mickey Mouse.
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah, you get rid of weeds as well, and you kind of keep pests off and all of that sort of stuff. But if you want to work for a city or a government and look after the trees in a particular neighborhood or help design, maybe, okay, we're going to expand a neighborhood, we need someone to look after the trees. That's where you need to get this extra training, these extra qualifications, and a license, basically a certificate that says, yes, this person has studied it all, they've proven their experience, they know what they're doing, and here we have a license to look after trees and, as we said earlier, administer and use pesticides when they consider it necessary.
Yeah.
So, you need, in the same way you need a license to drive or to, do CPR or train people in scuba diving and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You need a license to do the proper work of an arborist.
Yeah, because this is a very skilled job. You have to know a lot of different things, and you have to know very specific things. So, as the end of the article says, the final sentence, it takes true skill to climb to the top of this career. And we have a pun. It's a pun because you're climbing to the top of a career just like you climb to the top of a tree.
Excellent. And that
Hurrah.
that's a nice note on which to finish today's article about arborists. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
And I'm Kat.
And we'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.